Logan Hastings dedicated years to constructing an empire, honing his skills in control, and guaranteeing that every aspect of his life unfolded with purpose. As he lingered in solitude at a chic restaurant on Valentine's Day, nursing a glass of whiskey and turning a blind eye to the couples enveloping him, destiny chose that moment to disrupt his seemingly flawless existence. Across the room, he caught sight of her, Sophie, the woman he had once cherished and let slip away. Yet, it wasn't solely Sophie who captivated his gaze. Sitting beside her was a small child, perhaps 3 years old, with those recognizable dark eyes and a face that resonated deeply within Logan, sending a tremor through his very core. His heart raced as the truth struck him with the force of a blow to the chest. He was blessed with a son. And he had never realized. Logan Hastings had little interest in Valentine's Day. It was merely another evening, a night where pairs adorned in elegance filled upscale dining establishments, sharing blooms and hushed vows. For him, it was merely a chance to savor a peaceful dinner at one of the city's premier dining spots. He felt a sense of solitude, but it didn't weigh on him. At the very least, that was the narrative he crafted for himself. He had constructed an existence in which feelings took a back seat, where achievement was quantified by figures and power, rather than by affection or connection. The dining establishment exuded sophistication, bathed in a gentle glow of golden light that danced upon the sleek mahogany surfaces. The air was filled with laughter and soft whispers, harmonizing with the gentle strains of instrumental music that floated in the background. Every table brimmed with couples leaning in, immersed in their own intimate realms. Logan found himself seated in solitude at his familiar corner table, gazing out the window at the sprawling city skyline. He savored his whiskey, allowing the comforting warmth of the drink to envelop him as he perused the menu. Then, from the periphery of his vision, he caught sight of her. Sophie. Her presence struck him with an electrifying force. 3 years had passed since their last encounter, 3 years since their paths diverged, since she had turned away from him without a glance back. There she stood at the restaurant's entrance, engaged in conversation with the host, radiating the same breathtaking beauty he recalled. Her chestnut hair cascaded in gentle waves over her shoulders, and she moved with a serene assurance that had consistently captivated him. Yet, it was more than her mere presence that left him momentarily breathless. It was the young lad positioned next to her. The little one appeared to be no older than 3 years. His soft brown curls framed a face adorned with big, curious eyes that flitted around the restaurant, taking in every detail. Logan experienced an odd, disquieting feeling take root in his stomach. The boy's face was strange, yet there was an undeniable sense of familiarity about him. His posture, the subtle tilt of his head as he surveyed the room, felt eerily familiar to something Logan had encountered in the past. Sophie guided the child to a table on the other side of the room, oblivious to Logan's presence. She guided him into his seat, carefully straightening the collar of his little button-down shirt before addressing the waiter. Her movements were soft and deliberate, reminiscent of a nurturing figure tending to a beloved child. Logan found himself captivated. His thoughts surged, struggling to comprehend the scene before him. Could it be? Could this boy possibly belong to him? The notion was utterly ridiculous. If Sophie had been expecting when they separated, wouldn't she have mentioned it to him? Could he not have been aware? He was a man who meticulously managed every detail of his existence, ensuring that surprises had no place in his world. As he sat there, observing them from across the restaurant, a chilling awareness slithered up his spine. He needed to uncover the reality. He placed his glass down absent-mindedly and rose to his feet. His heart raced within him as he approached her table. His presence was certainly felt. Sophie glanced up just as he neared, and the instant their gazes locked, he perceived it. A glimmer of familiarity. A flicker of doubt. And underneath it all, there lies something more. Remorse. Logan paused at the table's edge, his eyes darting between her and the boy, who cheerfully savored small bites of pasta, unaware of the charged atmosphere surrounding them. He faced Sophie again, his tone unwavering yet resolute. Does he belong to me? Her lips parted slightly, yet silence enveloped her. For the first time in his life, Logan sensed the earth beneath him tremble, his meticulously built reality swaying on a pivot he had never known was there. Sophie took a deep breath, her eyes flickering to the child before locking onto his gaze once more. In that instant, clarity washed over him. There was no need for her to voice it. He had already found his answer. Sophie appeared as though she had something to express, yet silence enveloped her. Logan noticed the uncertainty reflected in her gaze, the inner turmoil, and how her fingers subtly clenched the napkin resting in her lap. He devoted years to observing others, grasping the nuances of negotiations, and detecting when someone was concealing the truth. At that moment, Sophie was restraining all her emotions. The young lad beside her sat in innocent oblivion, completely untouched by the palpable tension that had just enveloped the table. He softly hummed to himself while he poked at his pasta, his little legs swinging beneath the chair. He felt relaxed, at home, as if this were merely another typical evening. Yet for Logan, this moment was anything but ordinary. Sophie, he murmured, his voice softer yet still charged with intensity. I posed a question to you. She let out a breath, casting a quick look at the boy before redirecting her focus to Logan. Not here, she whispered. Logan's jaw tightened. It was not a rejection. It wasn't a direct confession, yet the manner in which she articulated it, with care and intention, revealed all he needed to understand. He gave a rigid nod. All right. Let's find another place to discuss this. Sophie paused, her eyes darting back to the boy. Logan sensed her mind at work, assessing and deliberating her choices. At last, she gave a nod. Please hold on for a moment. She glanced at the child, her face immediately warming with tenderness. Caleb, darling, would you mind staying here with Miss Emily for a moment? She gestured toward one of the waitresses who had just walked by and clearly knew them. Caleb gazed upward and gave a nod, his trust in his mother's choice unwavering. Logan experienced an unusual ache in his chest while observing their exchange. Caleb's affection for her was unmistakable, he found solace in her presence, blissfully unaware of the gravity of the moment unfolding before them. Sophie rose, her fingers gently gliding through Caleb's curls as she guided Logan to a more secluded area of the restaurant, close to the entrance. The atmosphere surrounding them was dense, laden with unspoken thoughts. Logan folded his arms, a sense of impatience creeping in. Reveal the truth to me, he urged. Sophie inhaled unsteadily. Logan. Is he mine? He pressed, his voice steady yet unyielding. She averted her gaze for a brief instant, as though summoning the bravery to voice her thoughts. When she finally met his gaze again, her brown eyes shimmered with an emotion that resembled regret, perhaps even a hint of sadness. Indeed, she confessed gently. He belongs to you. The word struck him with an unexpected intensity, despite his prior suspicions about the truth. Every muscle in his body tightened, his thoughts racing to comprehend the truth of her recent revelation. 3 years have passed. For 3 years, he remained unaware of having a son. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, not in anger directed at the child, never at him, but in frustration over the circumstances, over the decisions made without his input. You prevented him from reaching me, he stated, his tone softer now yet still charged with intensity. Sophie recoiled just a bit, yet she stood her ground. I acted in what I believed to be the right way, she stated. Logan exhaled sharply. Who is it ideal for? Definitely not my cup of tea. Her expression grew steely. Ideal for Caleb. Did you honestly believe I wished to undertake this by myself? That I intended to shield him from you? No, I didn't, Logan. Yet, I found myself at a crossroads. Thoughts surged through his mind, cycling through memories, seeking that pivotal instant when everything shifted. when she decided that he was not destined to be involved in his own son's life. "Why?" he inquired. "Why didn't you share that with me?" Sophie bit her lip, weighing her words with deliberate caution. In that moment, she spoke softly yet with conviction, reminding you that you simply weren't prepared back then. Your life revolved around your craft, Logan. Your enterprise, your triumph, that encompassed your entire existence. I feared that sharing this with you might make you feel confined. That you might act out of a sense of duty, yet ultimately feel bitterness towards both of us. Logan felt a constriction in his chest. A part of him yearned to dispute, to assert that she was mistaken, that he would have risen to the occasion, that he would have been present. Yet, a different aspect of him, the one that understood his own nature intimately, couldn't refute that she was right. 3 years prior, he was not the same individual. Would he have abandoned it all? Could he have found space for a child in the meticulously arranged life he had crafted? He was unaware. The weight of that uncertainty churned in his stomach, leaving him feeling ill. "I ought to have been given a choice," he remarked, breaking the lengthy silence. Sophie cast her gaze downward for a brief moment before lifting it to meet his eyes once more. She acknowledged it. "I apologize." Her voice held a sincerity that caused his anger to falter, yet it could not change the truth of the events that had unfolded. He had overlooked an abundance of moments. Caleb's initial utterances. His initial strides. Each milestone, each laugh, each scraped knee. He was absent for all of it. Yet, he was present at this moment. Logan took a deep breath, centering his thoughts on what truly mattered. "Is he aware of my existence?" he inquired. Sophie paused for a moment, then resolutely shook her head. "Negative. He is aware of his father's existence, yet he remains unfamiliar with you." The pain was greater than he had anticipated. Logan dragged his hand across his face, attempting to regain his composure. He expressed a desire to meet him properly. "I wish to understand my son better." Sophie observed him intently, as though weighing the possibility of placing her trust in him. At last, she gave a nod. "Understood." It was rather minimal. It fell short. Yet, it marked the beginning. Logan found himself unable to concentrate on anything else for the remainder of the evening. Long after he had exited the restaurant, as he remained in his car with his hands clenched around the steering wheel, knuckles pale with tension, Sophie's words continued to echo in his mind. "Indeed, he belongs to you for 3 years. 3 years of a child's life that he had overlooked. The life of his son." The heaviness settled on his chest, a blend of shock, anger, and a deeper, more painful emotion, regret. Upon arriving home, his penthouse, once a refuge, now appeared desolate in a manner he had never perceived prior. The contemporary furniture, the expansive windows framing the cityscape, the high-end artwork adorning the walls, it was all he had strived for, all he had believed he desired. Yet, in this moment, he understood for the first time that this space lacked any essence of what could be called home. The following morning, Logan awoke with one clear intention: he had to see Caleb once more. Not from across a dining table, not in a hurried exchange with Sophie, but in person, genuinely. He was uncertain about fatherhood, unsure of the right words or actions, yet one thing was clear: he wouldn't allow any more time to pass him by. Sophie had consented to the idea of him meeting Caleb, yet she had firmly established that it would be under her conditions. When she sent him a text that afternoon with an address, he acted without a moment's pause. He departed from work ahead of schedule, disregarding the inquisitive glances from his colleagues, and made his way across the city to a serene park nestled in one of the more affluent suburban areas. Upon his arrival, he noticed them right away. Sophie perched on a bench, her gaze fixed on Caleb as he frolicked near the jungle gym. The child laughed, his tiny hands clutching the bars as he ascended, blissfully ignorant of the tempest of feelings raging within the man just a short distance away. Logan had confronted merciless investors, sealed seemingly unattainable deals, and constructed an empire from the ground up, yet none of that could rival the anxiety coiling in his stomach as he drew near to them. Sophie glanced upward, her expression a mystery as he reflected her gaze. She offered him a slight nod, yet her lips remained sealed for the moment. Caleb was the one who spotted him next. The young child pivoted, his deep-set eyes filled with wonder as he observed the stranger next to his mother. There was an absence of fear, no instant acknowledgement, merely the calm, watchful gaze of a child who had yet to determine whether curiosity was warranted. Logan knelt, bringing himself down to Caleb's eye level. He was at a loss for the right words, lacking a flawless script for this occasion, so he resorted to the only action that felt instinctive. "Hey," he murmured, his tone gentler than normal. "My name is Logan." Caleb observed him intently, tilting his head ever so slightly. "Logan," he said again, trying out the name. Sophie softly cleared her throat. "Caleb, this is," she paused for a brief moment before proceeding, "this is your father." Logan paused, keenly observing Caleb's response. The young child gazed up at him, absorbing the words. He remained silent, his gaze fixed on the toy car in his hand as he gently nudged it toward Logan's knee. It was a gesture so simple and innocent, yet it almost took Logan's breath away. He extended his hand, gently lifting the car and maneuvering it back toward Caleb. The young lad chuckled, gathering it once more before tossing it back to him. Logan forced the knot in his throat down. He had anticipated various reactions, resistance, shyness, perhaps even fear, but this was beyond his expectations. He was taken aback that a 3-year-old would offer him an opportunity before he even had the chance to request it. Sophie observed the interaction in silence, her demeanor gentler than it had been earlier. "You can have fun with him, you know," she whispered. "He's not going to be aggressive." Logan exhaled, a sound that could have been mistaken for laughter, and turned his gaze toward Caleb. "Are you a fan of cars?" Caleb responded with eager agreement. "Quick ones?" Logan wore a sly grin. "Indeed. I have a fondness for fast cars as well." For the next 30 minutes, Logan settled into the grass, allowing Caleb to unveil his assortment of miniature race cars, absorbing the boys' enthusiastic chatter about colors, speed, and which ones were the most impressive. It was the longest he had ever been with a child, and to his surprise, he felt surprisingly at ease. He felt at home in his son's world. Only when Caleb's attention wandered to another piece of playground equipment did Sophie find her moment to speak again. She observed Caleb ascend and remarked, "He has feelings for you." I was uncertain about his reaction, yet. "It seems he has a fondness for you." Logan let out a slow breath. "I desire to be a part of his life, Sophie." She nodded, yet her posture revealed a hint of uncertainty. "I need to understand that you are truly committed, Logan. This transcends a mere business transaction. One cannot simply arrive in a day and vanish the following moment. If you choose to commit, it must be a lasting decision." Logan locked eyes with her, fully grasping the unspoken message between them. "Count me in," he declared confidently. "I may not have the answers right now, but I'm determined to find a way. I will remain present." "Here we go again." Sophie gazed at him intently, probing for a hint of emotion in his expression. She nodded in response. "Very well," she whispered. "Let's proceed gradually, step by step." As Logan redirected his attention to Caleb, who was gleefully descending a small plastic slide with an enthusiastic squeal, he sensed a change stirring within him. After a long time, he found something that held greater significance than his career or achievements. He was determined to hold on to it. The upcoming weeks unfolded in a manner that was entirely foreign to Logan. He thrived on organization, meticulously orchestrating days brimming with discussions, negotiations, and choices that held significance in the corporate realm. Yet, none of his impressive professional experiences had equipped him for the wild unpredictability of a 3-year-old. Sophie had consented to allow him to spend time with Caleb, yet she remained vigilant, establishing firm boundaries. Initially, their encounters were brief, spent in the park during the afternoons, or over quick lunches at a cafe, fleeting moments where Logan took on the role of an observer rather than engaging fully. He observed Caleb sprinting ahead on the playground, noting how easily he became captivated by the tiniest details, a bird flitting across the grass, the distant jingle of an ice cream truck. The young lad was filled with wonder about the world around him, and Logan soon understood just how much he had overlooked. One evening, he stood in the toy aisle of a store, captivated by an array of action figures, race cars, and stuffed animals that seemed to beckon him from every direction. He was completely clueless about the desires of a 3-year-old. He grasped a fire truck, only to set it down again. Next, a collection of enigmas. Next, a soft teddy bear. He had navigated billion-dollar contracts with greater assurance than he felt at that moment. "Do you need assistance?" an employee inquired, a hint of amusement evident in their voice as they noted his uncertainty. Logan let out a breath, his hand moving to massage the back of his neck. "Indeed. I have a 3-year-old son. I'm completely at a loss here." The staff member let out a soft laugh. Cars and dinosaurs are always a winning combination. Logan nodded thoughtfully, as if absorbing essential guidance, then picked up a collection of miniature race cars and a plush dinosaur, brimming with optimism. The following day, as he encountered Sophie and Caleb at the park, he crouched down and presented the bag to the boy. Caleb's eyes grew large with wonder as he revealed the dinosaur first, his tiny fingers gliding over its plush texture. "Is this for me?" Caleb inquired, gazing up at him. Logan swallowed hard, a lump forming in his throat as he nodded in response. "Absolutely, my friend. To you." Caleb beamed with delight as he wrapped his arms around the dinosaur, holding it close. He then turned his attention to the bag, methodically retrieving the cars and arranging them neatly on the grass. Sophie, positioned close by, observed the interaction with a face that revealed nothing. Eventually, Caleb took hold of Logan's hand. "Engage." The solitary term struck Logan with more force than he had anticipated. It was effortlessly straightforward, yet it held profound significance. Caleb longed for his presence, yearning for him to be woven into the fabric of his life. Logan settled on the grass, pushing the toy cars back and forth with his son, enjoying the sounds of Caleb mimicking engine noises as they raced the vehicles side by side. He had never experienced an afternoon like this before, never allowed himself the luxury of slowing down enough to simply exist in the moment. Yet, in this moment, as Caleb's laughter echoed around us, everything else faded into insignificance. As the evening wore on and they prepared to depart, Sophie strolled beside him while Caleb dashed ahead, pursuing a butterfly with youthful exuberance. After a moment, she remarked, "You have a good rapport with him." Logan cast a fleeting look in her direction. "I'm completely lost right now." Sophie offered a subtle smile. "That simply indicates you are a caregiver." Logan chuckled gently, yet there was an undercurrent to it, perhaps relief, or even a glimmer of hope. He had devoted his whole existence to the notion that success stemmed from maintaining complete control over every aspect. Caleb was indifferent to the notion of control. He was indifferent to Logan's business transactions or the figures in his bank account. He simply longed for companionship, for someone to share moments with. For the first time in his life, Logan understood that perhaps, just perhaps, this was the most significant thing he had ever accomplished. Logan had always held the conviction that success stemmed from unwavering dedication. To create something enduring, be it a business or a legacy, one must consistently arrive with determination and a willingness to labor each day. At that moment, he was discovering that being a father was just the same. He seized every opportunity to spend time with Caleb. Juggling a thriving business with the demands of a 3-year-old was no simple task, yet he was determined not to let his work overshadow his son once more. If that required departing the office ahead of schedule, rearranging appointments, or managing calls late into the night, then so be it. Caleb took the lead now. A clear routine started to emerge. On certain days, Logan would arrive at Sophie's apartment to collect him, and together they would head to the park, where they would engage in thrilling car races on the picnic tables or enjoy the simple pleasure of feeding ducks by the pond. On some days, they remained indoors, constructing towers with blocks on Sophie's living room floor, only for Caleb to joyfully topple them with laughter. Logan once brought him to his office, allowing Caleb to sit in his leather chair and doodle on sticky notes while pretending to engage in crucial business conversations. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the city, Logan returned with Caleb from an adventurous afternoon at the zoo, making their way to Sophie's cozy apartment. They had encountered elephants, lions, and even had the chance to feed some giraffes, but what truly captured Caleb's heart were the monkeys. He kept going on about how they swung from the branches, and as Logan lifted him up the steps to Sophie's building, the little boy chuckled into his shoulder, still brimming with excitement. "You're a monkey too," Logan teased, as Caleb clung to him, arms wrapped snugly around his neck. "I'm quite the large primate," Caleb declared. Logan let out a soft laugh, adjusting him in his embrace. He rapped on Sophie's door, and as she swung it open, her eyebrow shot up at the sight of Caleb still hanging onto him. "It seems like someone enjoyed themselves," she remarked, folding her arms. Logan mentioned that he had to carry him for the last 3 blocks, yet his tone lacked any genuine complaint. Caleb gazed up at his mother. "Father is powerful." The impact of the words struck Logan with an intensity he hadn't anticipated. His hold on Caleb tightened just a bit, his breath hitching in his throat. It was the first instance of Caleb addressing him in that manner, so effortless, so genuine, as if it had always been a reality. Sophie stood still as well. She locked eyes with Logan, and for a brief instant, silence enveloped them. Caleb, unaware of the significance of his words, released a deep yawn and leaned his head on Logan's shoulder. It seemed that was the moment for him to relinquish control, Logan finally remarked, pushing himself to act, to concentrate. He gently handed Caleb over to Sophie, but as soon as he did, Caleb instinctively reached out, clutching Logan's shirt tightly. "Stay," Caleb murmured, his voice thick with drowsiness. Logan paused, casting a sidelong look at Sophie, seeking her approval. She let out a gentle sigh, devoid of irritation, filled instead with a tender, empathetic quality. "Very well," she replied. "Step inside." Logan trailed behind her, observing as she gently transported Caleb to his cozy little bedroom. The room exuded a charming simplicity, with stuffed animals adorning the bed and crayon drawings playfully affixed to the walls. Sophie perched on the bed's edge, delicately easing Caleb's shoes off as he blinked in a sleepy haze. "Could Daddy share a story with me?" Caleb inquired, his hands moving to his weary eyes. Logan felt as though his heart might not withstand any further strain. He took a deep breath and settled on the opposite side of the bed, glancing over at Sophie once more. After a moment of uncertainty, she reached for the book on the nightstand and passed it to him. "Proceed." Logan opened the book and began to read, his voice unwavering even as emotions threatened to surface. Caleb nestled beneath his blanket, his tiny hand gently placed on Logan's arm as he absorbed the sounds around him. As Logan completed his task, Caleb's breaths had settled into a steady rhythm. He had drifted off to sleep. Logan gently shut the book, casting a brief look at Sophie. She observed him intently, and in the stillness of the room, an unspoken tension arose between them. "You're quite skilled at this," she murmured. Logan exhaled softly, shaking his head slightly. "I feel lost in my current endeavors." "You don't need to," she remarked. "Welcome. That is what truly counts." Logan gazed at his son, a child he had only recently discovered was part of his life. He extended his hand, softly sweeping a curl away from Caleb's forehead, captivated by the effortless, natural connection it brought. For the first time in his life, Logan understood that this moment, this sense of belonging, held greater significance than any business transaction ever could. And he was firmly rooted in place. Logan was not the type to doubt his own decisions. Each choice he had ever made was deliberate, exact, and carried out with steadfast assurance. Yet, being a father was a distinct experience. No amount of business strategies or negotiation tactics could equip him for the unpredictable journey of parenthood. Each day with Caleb was like venturing into unknown realms, discovering new things along the way, and wishing that his efforts would suffice. In the weeks that ensued, his connection with Caleb deepened. What began as tentative introductions and brief encounters evolved into a more organic connection, one that no longer felt like an unwelcome presence in a life that had thrived independently of him. Caleb approached him with enthusiasm, dashed forward without a moment's thought, and instinctively reached for his hand. One afternoon, Logan arrived at Sophie's apartment to take him out for their inaugural father-son adventure, just the two of them. Sophie felt a twinge of uncertainty initially, not due to a lack of trust in Logan, but rather an awareness of how deeply Caleb depended on his established routines. Logan comforted her, promising to proceed gradually and to avoid inundating their son with too much all at once. "Where are we headed?" Caleb inquired while Logan secured him in his car seat. "It's a surprise," Logan said, a playful smirk dancing on his lips as he turned the key in the ignition. Caleb's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, and Logan recognized how deeply he cherished that expression, a genuine, untainted delight, free from any concerns or doubts. It was a gaze he longed to encounter each day. Upon reaching the aquarium, they found themselves in a grand glass structure brimming with towering tanks showcasing a vibrant array of marine life. Upon entering, Caleb's eyes sparkled with wonder, his tiny hand gripping Logan's fingers with a sense of excitement. Logan had embarked on numerous business trips, resided in the finest hotels, witnessed the marvels of the world, yet nothing could rival the profound joy of observing his son experience something new for the very first time. They meandered through the displays, pausing at every tank as Caleb placed his hands against the glass, captivated by the fish gliding by. "Look at that one," Caleb exclaimed, gesturing toward a gigantic stingray gracefully moving through the water. Logan knelt beside him. "It is referred to as a stingray. Observe its motion. It appears to be soaring." Caleb nodded, his gaze fixed intently on the creature. "May I have the opportunity to touch one?" Logan smiled broadly. "Indeed, that's correct. There's a touch tank located over there. Care to give it a shot?" Caleb paused for just a moment before responding with enthusiasm. Logan guided him to the shallow tank, where smaller stingrays glided effortlessly beneath the surface of the water. A team member described the delicate technique of using only 2 fingers to make contact. Caleb extended his hand with a gentle hesitance, fingers poised just above the shimmering surface of the water. Logan rested his hand on Caleb's back, offering a wordless comfort. The young lad inhaled deeply, his heart racing with excitement as he finally reached out to touch one of the stingrays, a delighted giggle escaping his lips when it glided softly against his fingertips. "Dad, it's all gooey," Caleb exclaimed, gazing up at him with unadulterated joy. Logan experienced a constricting sensation in his chest upon hearing the word. Though it wasn't the first instance of Caleb using that term, it consistently took him by surprise each time. The remainder of the afternoon was devoted to exploration. Caleb possessed an insatiable curiosity, relentlessly inquiring and absorbing every detail around him. Logan responded to the best of his ability, coming to the realization that, for the first time in his life, he was not preoccupied with work, emails, or pending deals. He was right there, fully engaged, savoring the time spent with his son. As they finally departed, Caleb radiated joy, his legs kicking with delight while Logan lifted him toward the car. "Did you enjoy yourself?" Logan inquired while securing Caleb's seatbelt. Caleb responded with eager agreement. "What an incredible day!" Logan experienced a comforting warmth radiating from his chest, an unfamiliar sensation that brought profound satisfaction. "Let's have more days like this, shall we?" Caleb smiled broadly. "Is that a guarantee?" Logan extended his pinky finger. Commitment. Caleb intertwined his delicate pinky with his father's, solidifying their agreement. That evening, after leaving him at Sophie's, Logan stayed for a moment longer than he typically would. Sophie observed. "Are you all right?" she inquired. He let out a breath, his fingers tangling in his hair. "Indeed. Today was quite pleasant." Sophie offered a gentle smile. "He truly enjoys your company." Logan glanced at Caleb's bedroom door, listening to the soft murmur of his son engaging in a lively conversation with his stuffed animals about stingrays. He confessed that he loves being with him as well. Sophie observed him intently for a prolonged moment before giving a nod. "You're achieving more than you realize, Logan." Logan found himself uncertain about the truth of it all, yet for the first time, a flicker of belief ignited within him that perhaps, just perhaps, he was finally heading in the right direction. Logan was starting to realize that fatherhood involved more than merely being present. It transcended mere enjoyment, presents, or commitments. It revolved around unwavering dedication, about showing up during the mundane moments, about demonstrating, time and again, that he was steadfast and unyielding. The initial excitement of their time together had faded a bit, but that was a positive development. It signified that Caleb was beginning to anticipate his presence, that the look of surprise had faded from his face whenever Logan arrived. What once felt like cautious excitement had transformed into something profound, a steady trust that had previously been absent. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sophie reached out to him just as he was wrapping up his tasks for the day. Her voice carried a subtle sharpness, a tension he recognized immediately. "Caleb is not feeling well," she mentioned. "It's nothing major, just a cold, yet he keeps inquiring about you." Logan acted without a moment's pause. He called off his final meeting, slipped on his coat, and was behind the wheel in no time. When he finally reached Sophie's apartment, darkness had enveloped the surroundings, creating elongated shadows that danced across the windows. As she swung the door open, her weariness was palpable, her hair was hastily gathered into a disheveled bun, and shadows lingered beneath her eyes. "Challenging day?" Logan inquired, entering the room. Sophie released a gentle chuckle. "One might argue that. He hasn't shown much interest in food lately, and he's been particularly attached. Yet, the reality that he is seeking you. That's something different." Logan felt a constriction in his chest at her words. He understood their implications. Caleb viewed him as an integral part of his existence, a reliable presence during his less than stellar moments. It was a weighty obligation that might have instilled fear, yet it fueled his resolve instead. "Where could he be?" Logan inquired. Sophie guided him to Caleb's bedroom, where the young boy lay nestled beneath a blanket, his beloved stuffed dinosaur cradled under one arm. His cheeks were flushed, his small body motionless, yet his big brown eyes sparkled with excitement upon seeing Logan in the doorway. "Daddy," Caleb mumbled, his voice heavy with slumber. Logan approached him, lowering himself beside the bed. "Hello, my friend. How are you doing today?" Caleb wiped his nose against the blanket, a soft sniffle escaping him. "Weary." Logan cast a quick glance at Sophie, who met his gaze with an understanding expression before subtly gesturing to the chair next to the bed. "If you wish, you may remain." Logan acted without a moment's hesitation. He settled into the space, inclining his body just a touch, with his arms draped over the bed's edge. "Would you like me to keep you company until you drift off to sleep?" Caleb nodded thoughtfully, his small hand extending toward Logan's. Without a moment's pause, Logan accepted it, sensing the gentle warmth of his son's tiny fingers resting in his palm. For the next half hour, Logan remained in that quiet space, attuned to the gentle rhythm of Caleb's breathing, observing as his eyelids slowly descended until he finally succumbed to slumber. He had never experienced this before, had never been relied upon in such a manner, and yet it felt entirely instinctive. As he finally rose to his feet, taking care not to disturb Caleb, he noticed Sophie leaning against the doorframe, observing him intently. Her expression held a quality, a gentleness that hadn't been there previously. She spoke softly, "You truly care for him." Logan locked eyes with her, unwavering and confident. "Absolutely, I do." Sophie let out a breath, folding her arms across her chest. "I believe a part of me anticipated that you would eventually grow weary of this. For you to conclude that embracing fatherhood was an overwhelming endeavor, that it simply didn't align with your lifestyle." Logan scowled. "Sophie, I'm here to stay." After a moment of uncertainty, she gave a slight nod. "I understand. I've come to understand it at last." They lingered in quietude for a heartbeat, the gravity of her utterance hanging in the air around them. At last, she let out a deep breath. "Your presence brings me peace, and I'll rest easier with you around. If he wakes up and requires your assistance, I'll leave it to you to take care of it." In that moment, Logan sensed a change take place. It had transcended beyond Caleb. Sophie placed her trust in him as well, inviting him into the life she had created with their son, permitting him to assume a role that rightfully belonged to him from the beginning. As he sank into the couch for the night, a profound realization washed over him. This was the first time in years that he felt truly aligned with his place in the world. Logan stirred awake to the gentle sound of tiny footsteps softly traversing the floor. He blinked, acclimating to the soft morning light that seeped through Sophie's apartment. The couch beneath him offered little in the way of comfort, yet it was of no consequence. He had hardly slept at all, his mind consumed with thoughts of the little boy resting in the adjacent room. Just as he was about to rise, Caleb materialized in the doorway. His hair was tousled from sleep, and he rubbed his eyes with one tiny fist, the other hand still gripping his beloved stuffed dinosaur. He appeared weary, yet an improvement from the previous night was evident. "Father?" Caleb's voice carried the remnants of slumber, yet there was an unmistakable certainty in his utterance. Logan sensed a constriction in his chest. He was unaware of how deeply he craved to hear it once more. "Hey there, my friend," he remarked, propping himself up. "Are you feeling improved?" Caleb nodded slowly, then effortlessly made his way onto the couch, nestling into Logan's side as if it were a familiar routine. Logan instinctively drew him in, enveloping him in a warm embrace. Sophie stepped into the doorway moments later, her eyes growing wide at the sight of them together. Logan somewhat anticipated her to speak up, to nudge Caleb to allow him some distance, yet she remained silent. Instead, she merely offered a gentle smile and made her way into the kitchen. "Are you feeling hungry?" she inquired. Caleb rested his head gently against Logan's chest. "What is it that you desire?" "Fluffy stacks of deliciousness." Sophie wore a sly smile. "It shall be pancakes, then." Logan lounged on the couch alongside Caleb, both of them attuned to the soft, subtle noises of Sophie bustling about in the kitchen. Caleb's petite frame radiated warmth against his, the ease of his trust in Logan nearly engulfing him. "Will you be here today?" Caleb inquired after a moment. Logan acted without a moment's hesitation. "Absolutely, my friend. I have decided to remain." Caleb smiled, pleased with the response, and leaned in closer to him. Logan dedicated his life to the pursuit of achievement, evaluating his value through the expanse of his empire, the figures in his bank account, and the influence he wielded in the corporate realm. Yet now, as he sat with his son nestled beside him, he understood that nothing else held the same significance as this moment. Later that morning, as they gathered around a modest kitchen table savoring pancakes, Sophie gazed at Logan with a newfound intensity in her eyes. "Would you like to have him for the weekend?" she inquired, with a hint of nonchalance. Logan halted, his fork suspended mid-air, poised just before his lips. He cast a quick look at Caleb, who was completely absorbed in smothering his pancakes with syrup, oblivious to everything else. "Are you suggesting it happened in just one night?" Sophie gave a slight nod. "Indeed. If you are prepared." Logan had prepared himself for numerous experiences throughout his life. He had constructed enterprises from the very foundation, confronted insurmountable choices, embraced risks that the majority would shy away from. Yet, this was a completely different matter altogether. He gazed at Caleb, at the boy who had transformed everything, and understood there was but one response. I would absolutely enjoy that. Sophie smiled, and this time, there was a newfound confidence in her expression. It lacked protection. It was faith. For the first time in his life, Logan Hastings understood precisely what he was battling for. The conclusion of this narrative is profoundly impactful and immensely gratifying, as it eschews sensational plot twists or contrived endings, instead flourishing through subtle, significant instances of development and bonding. Logan's journey transcends the mere revelation of fatherhood. It embodies a relentless commitment to demonstrate, each day, his readiness to engage, to grow, and to become the father that Caleb truly deserves. The power of this conclusion lies in its portrayal of fatherhood as a journey, one that cannot be resolved in an instant. Logan doesn't suddenly transform into the ideal father, nor does Sophie effortlessly erase the years he was missing. Trust develops slowly, through meaningful moments, Caleb reaching for Logan's hand, calling him daddy with ease, and Sophie granting him an entire weekend with their son. These may not be extravagant acts, yet they hold greater significance as they represent genuine transformation. The most captivating aspect of this conclusion is the transformation in Logan's priorities. Initially, he gauged his value by the metrics of power, wealth, and dominance. Yet, as the last chapter unfolds, the significance of everything else fades in comparison to the connection he is nurturing with his son. He has transcended the role of a mere businessman, he is now a father. For the first time, he genuinely grasps the essence of fighting for something that transcends profit or success. It's about love and belonging. This isn't merely a joyful conclusion, it's a pragmatic one. A realm where affection is cultivated, not hurried. A scenario in which Logan's path to redemption unfolds not through words of regret, but through decisive deeds. And one where a young boy, unaware of what he lacked, finally receives what every child deserves, a father who decides to remain.